Hey, everybody, Pastor Dick Burnell here. It's Christmas week, and all the Burnells, we want to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas. Here's a deep theological question: Christmas Eve or Christmas morning? Growing up in Watsonville, and then later, after I was 12 years old in San Jose, we were always at Christmas Eve. Christmas Day was a big dinner, but we did the presents and we did the whole Christmas Eve thing on the 24th. My wife Carla's family was early on Christmas morning. We have evolved to late Christmas Day because a lot of our kids, they have, we got in-laws and other families to visit. And it's like, come over to our house about 5 o'clock. We'll have dinner and open presents on the 25th. So whatever your tradition is, God bless you. Speaking of traditions, I'm going to maybe rock the boat a little bit. Oh, Charles Capps used to say, kick over sacred cows, because we have such ideas about the first Christmas and what it must have looked like according to Hallmark cards and movies and TV shows about, the life of Jesus. And yet I've been studying the Christmas story for years. And what really took place is quite different than some of our traditional ideas. But first of all, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. Thanks for your prayers. And many of you, thanks for supporting us. Perhaps before the end of the year, you could send an end-time gift to help Jubilee Legacy. We're helping other ministries. We're trying to be a blessing as much as we can. So thank you for that. All right. Are you ready? Give me about 20, 22 minutes, and let's talk about some very interesting things this Christmas. Of course, the book of Luke and the book of Matthew, those are the books we go to this time of year. And last week, we covered a few things, several things about Mary and Joseph and all that. So I'm going to pick up in Luke 2, and I'm going to look at verse 6 here. So it was while they were there in Bethlehem, the Holy Family, the days were completed for her to be delivered. I think I said this last week, it was about a 90-mile walk from Nazareth, an arduous walk, dangerous walk, animals, robbers, what have you, vipers. It was a very dangerous, very difficult walk. And of course, we picture Mary on a donkey. The Bible doesn't say they had a donkey or a cart. Very poor people. She ate eight and a half. I'm saying she's about 8.5 weeks pregnant, maybe months, I'm sorry. 8 months, 8.5 months pregnant. And you got to walk 91 miles up to Jerusalem, which is over 2,500 feet in elevation. And I know our little Hallmark cards are cute and pretty, but very, very difficult on the Holy Family. So here we are, verse 6. The days were completed for her to be delivered, and she brought forth her firstborn son. She had other children, her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths. Interesting. And laid him in a manger, which was a feeding trough. Okay, as we said last week, I've been to Bethlehem, I don't know how many times. It's limestone all over the place, and there's caves, hundreds of them. And we visited many of the caves on a couple of our trips. It was very common to build your house, your dwelling place, on top of a cave, and then you would put the animals, especially in winter, which we'll get to in just a moment, you would protect your animals. By the way, it snowed. I was in 1983. Carl and I were with Lester Sumrall and quite a few preachers in Jerusalem. I looked out we're at the King David Hotel having lunch. I looked out the window, these big, beautiful snowflakes. So I asked some of the people that work there, oh yeah, every now and then we get snow and very bitter cold rain. So in the winter, your lambs, your oxen, your donkeys, what have you, you would keep them in these limestone caves. The stable, we traditionally call it. We think of a wooden stable. No, Jesus was born in a limestone cave. and the trough was a feeding trough. Now, the swaddling cloths were long strips of wool or linen, and they would wrap, especially the poor people, maybe middle class, but the poor people would wrap the child instantly. They didn't have heaters, they didn't have all of that. Fireplaces, they would wrap the legs, the feet, the arms in these cloths to keep them warm. Now, also, as I studied this week, many of the newborn lambs would also be wrapped, especially if the weather was cold. Their little legs, their torso, up to their neck would be wrapped in swaddling cloths. You get the connection. It's a beautiful image, beautiful picture. Of course, because there was no room at the inn. Listen, there was not a Holiday Inn, a Hilton, a Hyatt in the little village of Bethlehem. The translation here is a little confusing. Usually you would go to a relative's house. Now, I'm not sure if Joseph had a friend or a relative in Bethlehem, but they got there late and the place is packed. And yet whoever owned this particular house, called inn in the Bible, was kind enough to say, you could use our basement, which the limestone cave. Now there's probably animals in there, but just there's straw and there's a trough, and that's where the Son of God was born. Now, here we go. This is going to get good. Stick with me. Verse 7. Now there were in the same country shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. To me, this is proof Jesus was not born on December the 25th. Shepherds and their flocks would never, again, Bethlehem's about 2,569 feet in elevation. In December, it's bitter cold. You do not have your flocks and you do not sleep under the stars in the winter. I'm talking about shepherds now. So to me, and there's other things that come to mind, but Jesus could have been conceived on December the 25th. 9 months later is September the 25th, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. So if Jesus was conceived, say, around December 25th, 9 months later, it's the Feast of Tabernacles, which starts September the 25th. And first, and the Gospel of John, the Word became flesh and tabernacled. One of my Bibles, even you, dwells, lives, tabernacle. The Son of God, the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. So wouldn't that be just beautiful that he was conceived on the 25th of December, born on September the 25th, and which is the Feast of Tabernacles. One of the, there's like 4 feasts in the spring, nothing in the summer because that's the church age, and then 3 feasts in the fall, and the Feast of Tabernacles, of course, being on September the 25th. Anyway, I just want you to kind of get it out of your mind that Jesus was born December the 25th. We celebrate his birth. And if he was conceived, that's even perhaps to me more beautiful. Anyway, let's read on. Now there were in the same country shepherds living out in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. Behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. Let's talk about the shepherds, because these are going to be the first. First of all, shepherds were the lowest of the low class on the social ladder. They were looked down upon. They were uneducated. They were kind of dirty. They weren't real religious. They mingled with Gentiles real easy. They were simply trying to make a living. And so, the middle class, upper class kind of poo-pooed, looked down upon shepherds. In fact, shepherds were not even allowed to testify in a court case because they were thought to be unscrupulous. But these shepherds here are different. These are Levitical shepherds. Fact check me if you want. These are what's called Levitical shepherds. The sheep that they raised were used for sacrifice. by the priest. Now remember, Bethlehem is only 4 miles. You could walk it in a couple hours. Bethlehem is only 4 miles from Jerusalem. So the priest would hire these shepherds to produce lambs without spot or blemish, worthy to be sacrificed. Isn't that a beautiful picture? Because no wonder the angels appeared to them and said all of these beautiful things and told them, and they all of a sudden stopped what they were doing and hustled down to Bethlehem. I'm not quite sure how, a mile or two or whatever, and to see the Lamb of God who was slain before the foundation of the world, the Lamb, the final Lamb, Jesus. And to me, that's a beautiful picture. But again, let's get it out of our mind that Jesus was born on the 25th of December, but yet we celebrate Christmas, and I'm right there with you. All right, now let's quickly go over to Matthew because there's other visitors. There's the shepherds, the low class. Let's talk about the highest of the high class, the Magi. All right, let me read Matthew chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. All right. Who are these dudes, man? Who are these guys? I know. Our nativity scenes, you got animals, you got the manger, Joseph, Mary, you got a few little shepherds, and you got the three kings. All right, here we go. I'm going to kick over some tradition. They were never kings. They're not kings. Now, they were very close to the kings. Where are they from the east? Well, they're either from Persia, which is Iran today, or they're from Babylon, which is Iraq today, because both had magi. These magi were astronomers. They were wealthy. They were powerful. They were intellectuals. They were not kings, and they didn't have names. What I mean, of course, they had names, but in the 8th century, they were given names. But that's mythology. That's just whatever. And so let's stick with the Bible. All it says is wise men from the. And there wasn't 3, there was probably 12. The reason we think three is because they brought gold, which is the royal gift, frankincense, prayer, myrrh for burial. I have researched this quite a bit. Magi, usually they traveled in caravans where there'd be 12 magi and up to 150 servants, cooks, guards. They were very wealthy. Now watch. They saw a star. Verse 2, where is he who is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and we have come to worship him. All right, a couple of things here to discuss. These are scientists, astronomers, intellectuals, brilliant, and they studied the heavens. Not astrology, but they were astronomers. And all of a sudden, and it could be, and many believe this, that Jupiter, which is called the king planet, especially by the ancient Persians, Jupiter, and then Saturn converged, and Saturn represented to them the West, or Israel and parts of Syria, along with the constellation Pisces. So 3 things converged, and we have proven it. Fact check me. We can go back now and study the heavens. Around the time Christ was born, this happened. Saturn, the king planet. Jupiter, the king planet, and Saturn converge with the constellation of Pisces. So that's a very, very bright light in the heavens. Now, it may have taken them, now watch, the moment the star appeared was when Christ was born. Let's say in September. It's going to probably take them weeks, maybe months to kind of figure this out. What's going on? What's going on with this convergence? What's going on? Well, they came up with this. There's a new king born somewhere in Israel. Let's go see him. Let's go honor him. Let's go bless him. Let's go worship him. Now, it's a 1,700-mile walk from here's Jerusalem, and they're way over here. And they got to follow, I'm told they probably stopped at 71 different oases and rivers, and they kind of followed the river and the different oases. You got camels, you got maybe carts, you got 150 people need water. And so it's going to take them, watch now, to get from where they are in the east, it's going to take them 4 to 5 months to get to Jerusalem to ask Herod. Of course, now watch, they're following the star, which to me, the convergence of planets and constellations, they don't move. They don't just move and stop, appear, disappear, but the star of Bethlehem did. So this is what I believe, and others, that it was the convergence that got their attention, but then it was the Shekinah, or maybe a cluster of angels, that led them eventually to where Jesus is. Now, here's the thing. Let's say it take 3, 4, 5 months for them to figure out what's going on in the heavens. Let's go another 4 or 5 months, arduous journey. They get to Jerusalem, and the star moves again and 4 miles away over Bethlehem. Watch, verse 9. When they heard the king, Herod, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them. Again, can't be an astronomical body like Jupiter. It has to be either the Shekinah glory, presence of God, or a cluster maybe, or one huge angel that is lighting up the heavens. Behold, the star which had been seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. Now notice, verse 11, and when they had come to the house, they saw the young child. There's a Greek word for infant, then there's another Greek word for young child. Jesus is probably 1 year old. He's not in the cave. They found a house. Joseph found work in Bethlehem. Maybe he's even a toddler. He's crawling, or maybe he's beginning to walk. And so the wise men, 12 of them, what have you, caravan 150, they're following the star's moving. And the star camps out right over this house. And there's Joseph, Mary, and this young child. And they worship him with gold, which was the royal gift, frankincense, which represents prayers, or the prophetic gift. You got the king and prophet gift, and then myrrh, which they anointed bodies. And so you see all the symbolism here. The King of Kings, the high priest after the order of Melchizedek, the one that will die for the sins of mankind, all represented. Now, another thing, an angel warns the wise men, tell Joseph, get out of here. Herod is gonna, now watch, remember what Herod said? Go kill all the males 2 years and under, because he's tracking when the star first appeared. And it was either a year ago or 14 months ago. So he was playing it safe, this brutal maniac, serial killer, Herod. And so he told the soldiers, kill all, just to be safe, because we got to kill this competitor, this king, this whatever, 2 years and under. And so Joseph and Mary flee to Egypt. Now watch, all that gold, and I mean, he didn't have to work. This is like the first missionary support to the work of Christ. It was quite a walk. Maybe they went to Alexandria. We're not sure. And they stayed there and they were ordered to stay there until Herod finally dies. Now they come back, not to Bethlehem, but they come back to Nazareth. and the Christ child grows up. So I hope maybe that helps you get a biblical, historical, biblical picture of the first Christmas. Now listen, my wife has nativity scenes all over our house with the wise men. It's beautiful. Mary on a donkey, it's beautiful. I mean, especially little kids, it's a great way to teach kids. But eventually, study to show yourself approved, being a workman, not being ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I'm a student. I study the Bible, and I want the real biblical picture of what the Holy Family went through, and I want to really know who these shepherds are, and I want to know who these wise men are, because obviously God put it in this book for a reason. Hey, everybody, God bless you. We'll talk to you next week. 2026 is almost with us. I'm going to ask God to give me a prophetic word about the year to come, and we'll talk about that next week. Merry Christmas, everybody.